Ian Pfennigwerth's book, Bravo Zulu, Honours and Awards the Australian Naval People 1900 to 2014, Volume 1, was officially launched by Vice Admiral Tim Barrett on October 20, 2016 at UNSW Canberra at the Australian Defence Force Academy.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for coming. I know you didn't come to see me, but I just happened to be passing, so I thought I'd say a few words. I realise you've had a busy day today, and I appreciate the fact that you have had that busy day. What you have been discussing is important. And I think, as some people will probably have said during the day, including hopefully the Minister, who I know said a few words at the start, it's important that we discuss these issues, and it's important that we discuss what navies are about. We are not just an organisation that sits idly by. We're not an organisation that just provides humanitarian assistance. We are an organisation that provides lethal force when it is needed. So it's important that we sit down and have adult conversations about what we do. So I'm very pleased the fact that people gathered today and were able to talk through in a mindful sense the important bits that actually are very important for this nation and very important for what this Navy does for this nation. But this afternoon I've been asked not to lecture you on what I think about what navies do. It's actually to launch a new book. Now, normally I get asked to launch ships, but I occasionally, I don't mind launching boats, but books. But I will have to say that the last ship that I did launch, which was earlier this year, and it was HMAS Hobart, our newest ship, air warfare destroyer, it took 28 minutes to launch her, because the new way of doing business is to press a button and walk away and then sit back. And you can, if you look really hard, imperceptibly just see it slowly lower into the water from a synchro lift. It's not the way of the past. But hopefully the book launch that I'm about to give will be a little faster than that. So let me get on with a few words that I'd like to say. Firstly, it is important, I think, that to understand where we are going, and I've spoken about where I think Navy is going and should be going, but it is also important that we understand where we have come from. Indeed, I have made it my job as the Chief of Navy to ensure that we get a better understanding and a better recording of everything we do, to promote our own history, but to understand our own views and understand why we do what we do. I am an amateur historian, but I do think it's important that we understand these issues. I have been encouraged by the public response to our growing focus on Navy's history, including the growth in popularity of the Navy history site on the official RAN webpage, which I understand at the moment is becoming one of our most frequently visited sites. I would like people to also look at the other aspects of what Navy is doing into the future, but I do appreciate the fact that we are drawing a crowd of people who are interested and intent on reading what Navy has done. I also note that the Navy Sea Power Centre is in the process of producing the third volume of the history of the RAN. It's a DVD set. It will be very popular, and it will be in the stores fairly soon, I would hope. But it covers operations from the end of the Second World War right up through the Vietnam War. That's the third instalment. These projects are really very important for Navy, and they ensure that the Australian public more generally, does readily understand that which their Navy, the Australian Navy, has done for them. And whilst some of our history is understood, and in some cases reasonably well documented, many of the records have focused really on the actions of the units themselves and task groups, rather than on people who themselves give life and purpose to the ships, the aircraft, and the submarines that we operate. For this reason, Ian's book, Bravo Zulu, is unique in its attention to the personal detail behind many of Navy's stories that need to be told. Bravo Zulu looks at the background events that led to the presentation of all the honours and awards earned by Australian Navy people across a stretch of now nearly 115 years. It is unprecedented in its research task, and one that has required Ian and his team to overcome a number of challenges. These challenges have included trawling through incomplete records, tracking down the recipients and the surviving relatives of personnel so that they can be interviewed, I also understand that the historical resources and cooperation of the staff at the Navy Sea Power Centre have played a significant part in assisting here, but I know overall to get all this work done it has been a challenge. But given that the challenge has been reached, it is indeed a remarkable account of Navy's very proud history. But what probably sets this book, Bravo Zulu, apart from other historical accounts is its deliberate focus, specific focus on Navy people. It really is about Navy people doing extraordinary things, often in dangerous and onerous circumstances. This is a milestone in documenting the history of the Royal Australian Navy. To all those who researched and produced this book, can I say, as the name implies, Bravo Zulu. Now, I would normally, don't anticipate the order, Bob. Can I say, I would normally say at this stage that I would have read a fair amount of the book before I launch it. But if you actually look at the size of the book that you can get, please, I ask you to accept the fact that I certainly have read the foreword because I wrote it. And I've started just delving into a little bit now, but there's a lot of holiday reading here for me, or a lot of long journeys where I'll be able to finish the rest of it as long as I can get it within my accompanied baggage. Can I thank you on behalf of Navy for the work that you've done and for what this reveals about parts of our history that not everyone knows, but they are stories that are worth telling, and it's a history that the Australian population should know about. With that, can I officially launch, and it took slightly less than 28 minutes, this new book. Thank you, Ian.
Thank you.
It's not often
I always have this trouble. I'm not sure about 28 minutes, but we'll try. First of all, thank you, Admiral Barrett, for officiating at the launch. It has been important during the progress of this and the ultimate success of the project that we've enjoyed your support and your predecessor's support and encouragement. It's been very comforting in dark days, and there were plenty of those, to know that we had top cover. My thanks also to you, ladies and gentlemen, for attending the launch. Your support is also important, as I'll explain shortly. Historians are people who ponder cause and effect and publish their conclusions or opinions, as you like. People look to them to provide answers on why things turned out the way they did. You may have heard of the Cleopatra's nose theory. If Cleopatra was ugly as sin, would certain things not have happened? But for those who might be wondering, we're all here today because in 2002, I became convinced that golf wasn't sufficiently intellectually stimulating, and I was looking around for something else to do. So within 3 years of that decision, I was a Doctor of Philosophy from Newcastle University. I discovered in my research on naval intelligence, a subject I thought I knew something about, having been Director of Naval Intelligence. I found out I was wrong about that too. But I found this guy called Eric Nave, and no one had written a book about him, and I thought that was a shame, so I did. And so I will shortly be presenting you, Admiral Barrett, with the last extant copy of my first book. The rest, as they say, is history. I've now written 13 manuscripts and published 11 of them, so there's been quite a lot of work done. It's highly addictive historical research, and it's also lonely and antisocial. This is my final book, I assure you, but I have been most fortunate in enjoying the support, the loving support and assistance of my wife, Elizabeth. Having served loyally for over 30 years as a Navy wife, she then discovered that she was becoming an historical wife and had another 13 years of that as well. Self-absorbed, driven husband. Thank you, my dear. During the 7-year slog, yes, it's taken that long. It's almost as long as it takes to build a guided missile destroyer. I was loyally and effectively supported by a team of volunteer researchers who coalesced around the problem. My original partner, David Ruffin, who can't be here today, was unable to continue, but others loyally rallied round, and some of them are here today. Jan Billett, Terry is not here, Brett Mitchell, Les Roberts, Paddy Torrens and Greg Swindon are all very important to the success of this project. I could not have done it by myself. Others assisted by commenting critically. I formed a control group of civilians to make sure that we took out all the navalisms that creep into this work, because this book is written for a general audience, not a naval audience. And then I employed people with naval experience to make sure I hadn't written out the wrong things. So a great team of people have been involved in writing this book. The pronoun we is used deliberately through it. It's not a royal we. It simply indicates the fact that this is the result of a team effort, that we produced a book. My name's on the front. I take responsibility for it, including the mistakes in it, which I hope you won't find too many of, but nevertheless, it is a team effort. I wanted you to know that. I also expressed my thanks to my publisher, Ian Gordon, and to the typesetter and designer, Peter Gamble, who produced a beautiful book. It is a brick of a book, as you can see. Nevertheless, it is a beautiful brick. There was another source of support that emerged as the research progressed, and that is that while we, as a former naval officer, I knew that we sometimes spend too much attention on grey-painted lumps of machinery, the story is about the people who procure, operate and tend those machines. And the background stories were a sharp reminder of this to me. So I hope that those who read it will be reminded that, as the Admiral has said, the Navy is about people. People make the Navy, not grey-painted machinery or black-painted machinery, if you like. It doesn't matter what colour the machinery is. The fact is the people who make it work. And that was what drove me on, because I felt that their stories really did need to be told. Now, the stories epitomise what the RAN has now codified as its values and signature behaviours. And if you're looking for examples to illustrate those values and signature behaviours, they're all in here. Honesty, courage, integrity and loyalty are all here, as well as people, performance and professionalism, particularly the latter. I'd add two other nouns: resolution, grit to see the job through to the end, no matter what it cost. And secondly, of course, initiative, because you will find in here hundreds of cases where people really used their initiative to overcome problems that seemed insoluble. I don't want to pick on particular groups of people or people, because that's favouritism, but I do commend to you who read this the story of the ship's company of HMAS Parramatta, the World War II sloop in a Tabuk ferry run in the Mediterranean in 1941. I find that a very moving story about how everybody rallied round. No matter what they were supposed to be doing, they rallied round to save their convoy. The consort, the members of the consort ship's company were sunk, and of course their own ship. Unfortunately, most of them died quite soon after that in another enemy attack. The second one is that I continue to marvel at the courage and the dedication of the people we sent to Vietnam in the RAN helicopter flight. I think they're not given their due, and I'm not taking anything away from the soldiers who fought at Long Tan, but I do think that equal courage and equal determination under very trying circumstances, always, day by day, in the face of the enemy, as the phrase goes, really needs better recognition. Now, two further thoughts for you. Firstly, we can't, historians can't tease out cause or effect from cause if we don't have anything to work on. Admiral Barrett has said, and I'm delighted to hear it, that steps are being taken now to overcome what has always traditionally, unfortunately, been for the Navy a problem: keeping adequate records. If there are no records kept, then there's nothing that historians can work on. Whoever has to write Bravo Zulu Volume 3 might have a problem, but it won't be mine. But I want you to make sure that you don't make it a problem for him or her either. And I'm delighted that all the other things you have on your plate, sir, you've put some effort into that. I can't say more than he can't do it by himself. Chief of Navy can do lots of things, but can't do all of it by himself. We must all try to make sure those are attended to. And I speak with the zeal of a reformed sinner. When I was Director of Naval Intelligence, I presided over a shocking, shameful destruction of a whole lot of records that we should have kept, but there wasn't room in the vault. Things were pressing, all other reasons why I took the decisions I did. I'm not proud of that. I just want you to know that I'm not preaching as someone who hasn't made mistakes in that regard. And I've regretted my intention ever since. Finally, as an audience, can I say that you are the final arbiters of whether naval history as a genre survives. We have official historians, and the CPAL Centre does a marvellous job, but there are not quite hundreds. There are 100 people out there writing naval history that you've never heard of. I've addressed a large number of diverse community groups over the past 13 years, people like Probus, Rotary and so forth. They're not sea blind, they just don't have any information to go on, because as far as I know, I'm the only bloke out there talking to them. Now, when I talk to them, they say, we didn't know anything about that, and I know that's true. They didn't, because they're not getting the word. The message is not getting through. The way to get it through is to get out there and talk to the public. So I don't know how it's going to be done. I won't be doing it for very much longer. So we need to engage with the Australian public, and that's why Bravo Zulu is written the way it is, so it will engage with the Australian public and tell them about the fabulous story of their Navy. As you said, sir, it is their Navy. They should be proud of us because we've done an excellent job. Finally, can I say that it's all about money, I'm afraid. I'm not spruiking my book. I'm simply pointing out that if you want to publish a book these days, you're looking at $10,000. That's after you've done the work and the writing. And then, of course, the cost of printing the book. So please remember that when you see people advertising their books, they need your support. I say it on behalf of all naval history writers. Finally, thank you very much for attending. I have a privilege of presenting to you Bravo Zulu, a history of the Australian Navy based on the deeds and achievements of its people, and thank you for your attention.
The book launch was held in conjunction with the 2016 Goldrick Seminar, co-hosted by the Australian Naval Institute and UNSW Canberra's Australian Centre for the Study of Armed Conflict and Society. Work on preparing Volume 2, covering honours and awards to December 2014, is well underway, with anticipated delivery in early 2017.